Russia has accused the US of involvement in a Ukraine missile strike on Sevastopol in occupied Crimea, which officials say killed at least 4 people, including 2 children. Around 150 others were injured in the attack as debris from the missile fell on a nearby beach. The attack used US-supplied missiles. Russia summoned the US ambassador, claiming that America is waging a proxy war and promising retaliation. The US has rejected the charge, saying it provides weapons for Ukraine's self-defense. Correspondents say this incident escalates tensions in the ongoing conflict, with Russia issuing threats of retaliation and warning of impending consequences. Well, let's cross live to London and speak with Arise European Affairs analyst, Dr. Marek Laskiewicz. Good to see you, Dr. Laskiewicz. So a very strong reaction from Russia, blaming the US for this Ukrainian missile attack on Crimea. The Russian Foreign Ministry saying US involvement in the attack was not in doubt. Just summarize for us why Moscow is so convinced of Washington's direct involvement.
Well, there's 2 aspects. The simplest, that no one doubts. The other aspect is that the Americans actually fired it on the basis that Ukrainians are not capable of firing such a missile. That is what Moscow is also stating.
Yeah, we missed the first bit of what you said there, but just to get a better sort of steer on what's going on there, just tell us about this attack and why it's got the Russians so upset.
Because it is an American missile fired onto Russian soil, as the Russians see it. The problem is that they also accuse that it's American technicians fired it, missile, not used directly in a military way on top of everything else, because it doesn't appear to be a military target that was in sight. It therefore follows this is an escalation. In fact, it goes beyond what President Biden said, because President Biden said American missiles should be used against targets in Russia which are threatening Ukraine. It's not clear how Sebastopol can do that. So therefore, what is happening now is there's been an escalation, and the real worry is, what will Russia do? It has an excuse, and this is what it's been building in its PR, that it can now strike back at, say, America by chance, as part of NATO, of course. And the worry is how far the Russians will go. One aspect of it is it might go so far as to strike a NATO country, which is what the Russians have been threatening, in particular Poland. Hopefully still non-nuclear, and hopefully this will not occur. But now Russia choosing what they want to do next.
Right. Okay. The line is, I have to say, very wonky. But again, we're going to try and persist with it. You were talking about what Moscow might do in retaliation. I mean, Mr. Putin has repeatedly threatened to target countries supplying weapons to Ukraine, claiming they are legitimate targets, but so far he hasn't taken any action, and he's been saying this for quite a few months now.
But he has not had a clear excuse like this. What happened previously was that NATO missiles from the various NATO countries have been used within Ukraine itself. And so although there was an aspect of interdiction in his comments, is different from Russia itself coming under attack, Russia, of course, being the occupied Ukrainian territories. And now the point is, will he use this as an excuse to strike at a NATO country, the most likely target being Poland, possibly the Baltic states? He has often stated that Poland is one of his targets, hopefully in a non-nuclear way.
Well, I mean, the problem with that is that Russia would be inviting on itself, I mean, the collective wrath of NATO, because, I mean, Poland is a NATO country, and if he were to attack Poland, I mean, without the use of nuclear weapons conventionally, then NATO would be obliged to respond, wouldn't it?
But the point is whether the attack as a riposte to the American attack would be seen by everyone as an unprovoked attack on Poland. It's the business of finding an excuse. Is the excuse sufficient? That is the key question. It might be, of course, in the Baltic states, but they're still members of NATO, as you rightly point out. The real question is now, what will Russia do? It has made many threats, and hopefully it won't attack a NATO country. Hopefully it will only, obviously, for the Ukrainians themselves, but were it to go the next stage, then they, the Russians, will blame NATO, in particular America, for this. And in this blame game, it is unclear that Russia would be alone to be pilloried.
Right. What's your assessment, Dr. Laskiewicz, of how the battles are going in Ukraine at the moment? I mean, are the Russians gaining ground still, or are the Ukrainians managing to hold them off?
The Russians are still making some progress. It's not a lot of progress. And therefore, in that sense, it is still a part of an overall stalemate. For this reason, it is a great pity that these American missiles have been used against Crimea, Sebastopol, because there was no need for it. Had we had the opportunity of making a stalemate in Ukraine, then possibly some negotiations might have been possible. And this is where, of course, the non-aligned nations like Nigeria or South Africa could have a role to play, which is why I've written to them. The point about it is that a stalemate is a precursor to at least finding, as
Right.
it stands, has now meant that it's possible that Russia may take a step further too, which makes any possibility of a peace agreement still away, and unfortunately will lead to more escalation. Let us hope Russia does not do that.
Okay, Dr. Marek Laskiewicz, talking to me there from London. He's a RISE European Affairs analyst. Thank you very much indeed, and we do apologize for that very shaky line.